Ready to dive deep into something that might just rock your world?
I'm all ears.
Well, today we're taking on vitamins.
Oh, vitamins. Interesting.
But not just any vitamins. We're going to be exploring the truth about naturally occurring supplements versus the synthetic stuff.
I have a feeling this is going to be eye-opening.
It definitely is. We're going to be pulling some shocking truths from supplements exposed by Dr. Brian Clement.
I've heard of it, but never actually dove in.
Yeah, it's a fascinating read, and it might make you think twice about that multivitamin you're taking every day.
Really? You mean it might not be as beneficial as we think?
That's exactly what Dr. Clement argues. He says most supplements and fortified foods rely on synthetic chemicals that try to mimic natural nutrients, but they just don't measure up.
That's a bold statement.
Mm.
So you're saying that those vitamin pills might not be doing what we expect them to do?
It's more like they're doing something different, and it's not necessarily good. Think of it this way. Could you imagine surviving on a diet of only vitamin supplements?
That's a recipe for disaster, right?
Precisely. You need the complex synergy of all the vitamins, minerals, and enzymes working together that you find in natural foods.
It's like trying to recreate a symphony by playing just one note.
Perfect analogy. Dr. Clement actually uses a similar analogy in his book. He talks about scientists trying to create synthetic seawater.
Oh, I've heard about that. It matches the real stuff chemically, right?
Right. But here's the thing. Marine life just won't thrive in it
Why not? If it's chemically the same, shouldn't it be the same?
because it lacks that vital life force that exists in natural seawater. It's that intricate web of life that just can't be replicated in a lab.
So is Dr. Clement saying that vitamins and minerals have a life force too?
Exactly. And get this, there's scientific research that supports this idea.
Yeah.
He cites Dr. Valerie Hunt, who studied bioenergy fields.
Interesting. What did she find?
Her research suggests that our bodies actually vibrate differently when we consume natural versus synthetic nutrients.
Wow, so it's like our bodies are recognizing that something's off.
That's what it seems like. So what about all those claims that synthetic vitamins are just as good as natural ones?
Yeah, I mean, we hear that all the time, don't we? They're chemically identical, right?
They may be chemically identical, but the difference lies in the details.
Details. What kind of details?
They often lack the vital cofactors that allow our bodies to properly use them. It's like trying to bake a cake with just flour and sugar. It won't work.
Ah, you need all the ingredients and in the right proportions. So are you saying synthetic vitamins are essentially useless?
Not useless, but they might not be fully utilized by the body. In fact, they could even be treated as toxins.
Toxins. That's a bit scary.
Right. Dr. Clement even mentions a pretty shocking anecdote in his book about undigested vitamin pills being found in portable toilets.
Oh, that's a visual I won't soon forget. It really makes you wonder what's happening inside our bodies.
Right, and it makes you question all those fortified foods we see everywhere. You know, the cereals, bread, juices, all claiming to be packed with added vitamins and minerals.
It's like they're trying to convince us that processed food can be healthy.
That's exactly Dr. Clement's point. He calls them glorified junk food with a sprinkle of synthetic nutrients.
So are you saying all fortified food is bad?
Well, the original idea behind food fortification was to combat nutrient deficiencies, but it's become a marketing tactic.
Instead of promoting whole foods, they're making us believe we can get everything from a box of cereal.
Exactly. And the problem is, those synthetic nutrients might not be absorbed properly. And then there are all those supplements that claim to be natural just because they come from sources like yeast or algae.
Are those any better?
Not necessarily. Dr. Clement calls it the food source vitamin scam. Sometimes they'll add synthetic vitamins to them and still claim they're natural.
So they're misleading people into thinking they're getting something they're not.
Right. And then you have all the hidden dangers lurking in those vitamin supplements.
What do you mean? Hidden dangers?
All the synthetic vitamin additives, the chemical preservatives, artificial colors and flavors, fillers, and binders.
Are those really that bad for you?
Some of them can be, especially for children. Dr. Clement mentions red 40 and yellow 5 and their potential link to behavioral problems like ADHD.
Wow, it's scary to think those are hiding in so many supplements.
The problem is they're not always clearly listed on the label. You might have to do some serious digging to find out what's really in those pills.
So how do we know what to choose, what's really natural and beneficial?
Well, Dr. Clement is a big advocate for a standard called the Naturally Occurring Standard, or NUS.
What's that?
It ensures that the vitamins and minerals are derived from whole food sources and haven't been isolated or synthetically produced.
So it's about going back to basics, choosing supplements that are as close to nature as possible.
Exactly. But we've only scratched the surface here.
There's more.
Oh yeah, much more.
Well, I'm hooked. Let's keep digging. So much of what we think we know about vitamins needs to be completely rethought.
You know, it's true. We've become so reliant on these synthetic vitamins that we've almost forgotten that nature provides everything we need.
In Supplements Exposed, Dr. Clement really emphasizes that. He talks about these pioneers in natural health who knew all about the power of whole foods and natural supplements way before it became trendy.
He mentioned some big names like Dr. Royal Lee, Dr. Weston Price, and Dr. Bernard Jensen.
Yeah, these guys were ahead of their time. They were challenging the idea that synthetic vitamins were just as good as natural ones.
So let's start with Dr. Royal Lee. What did he do?
Dr. Lee was a dentist and a biochemist, and he really dedicated his life to studying nutrition and developing whole food supplements.
So he wasn't just talking about it, he was actually making them.
Exactly. He really believed that vitamins and minerals work best in their natural forms, with all the cofactors and enzymes, just like they are in nature. He actually invented a special process for creating supplements that kept all those natural elements intact.
Wow, so he was really walking the walk.
He was, and he was a big critic of the food industry, especially the way they refine grains and add synthetic vitamins to processed foods.
He saw that as stripping away the good stuff and replacing it with, well, junk.
Exactly, like we were sacrificing real nutrition for convenience and profit.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What about Dr. Weston Price? I've heard his name, but don't really know much about him.
Dr. Price was a dentist too, and he was fascinated by these isolated indigenous populations that had amazing health and dental structure.
Oh yeah, I've seen pictures. Their teeth are incredible.
Right. So he traveled all over the world in the 1930s, studying what these people ate and comparing it to the diets of people in more modernized societies.
Like a real-life Indiana Jones of nutrition.
Totally. And what he found was amazing. These indigenous populations who were eating traditional diets full of whole foods, they had super strong teeth, strong immune systems, and they weren't getting the chronic diseases that were becoming common in the West.
So their diets were protecting them.
Exactly. And when he compared their diets to the modern Western diet, with all the refined grains, processed foods, and sugar, the connection was clear.
It's like a big flashing sign saying, this is what's making us sick.
Pretty much. And his work is still inspiring people today to go back to those traditional ways of eating, focusing on whole foods and nutrient-dense ingredients.
Makes sense. So the last pioneer mentioned in Supplements Exposed is Dr. Bernard Jensen. What was his focus?
Dr. Jensen was a naturopathic physician, and he was all about whole foods and natural therapies. He knew a lot about nutrition, herbal medicine, detoxification.
So he was looking at the whole picture, not just treating symptoms.
Exactly. And like Dr. Lee, he was really critical of the food industry, especially how they market unhealthy products. He believed people had a right to know what they were really eating.
It's like he was fighting for people to be informed and make their own choices.
Totally. His work has influenced a lot of people to make healthier choices and look for natural ways to be well.
It's amazing how the work of these pioneers, who were sometimes ridiculed, is now becoming more mainstream.
Yeah, people are starting to see the limits of conventional medicine and are realizing that a more holistic approach is important.
Like we're coming back around to what nature has been telling us all along.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of challenges to conventional thinking, Dr. Clement brings up something pretty concerning in his book.
What's that?
It's about something called Codex Alimentarius, an international organization that's making rules about the sale of food and supplements all over the world.
This sounds like it's getting into some political territory.
It does, but it's important for anyone who cares about having choices when it comes to their health.
Okay, so what's the issue with Codex?
Dr. Clement argues that Codex is basically trying to limit access to natural supplements. They want to impose these really low dosage limits, which he sees as a way to give more power to pharmaceutical companies.
So instead of treating vitamins and minerals like nutrients, they're regulating them like drugs.
Exactly. And these regulations could make it really hard for people to get the supplements they need, even if they're from natural sources.
That's worrying. It sounds like a power struggle over our health and our access to natural healing.
Absolutely. Dr. Clement wants people to learn about Codex and stand up for their right to choose natural health options.
It's about protecting our freedom to make decisions about our own health without being controlled. It's amazing how much I've learned about vitamins just from this deep dive. I always thought a vitamin was a vitamin, whether it came from food or a pill.
I know what you mean. The marketing can be pretty convincing, but like Dr. Clement says, there is a huge difference between natural nutrients and the synthetic ones.
He makes a really good point about how our bodies actually respond to them differently. He talks about some research done at the Hippocrates Health Institute, where he's the director. They compared how well people absorb and retain natural versus synthetic nutrients.
And the results were pretty impressive, right? They found that when people switched to a whole food diet and naturally occurring supplements, their nutrient levels shot way up in a short amount of time.
Like their bodies were just soaking it all up.
Exactly. And some people even felt a difference in their energy levels and just overall well-being after just a few weeks.
Wow, that's pretty convincing evidence that our bodies know the difference and can use natural nutrients much better.
Makes you wonder how many people are wasting money on synthetic supplements that their bodies aren't even using.
So where do we go from here if we want to make sure we're getting the real deal?
Well, Dr. Clement obviously recommends switching to naturally occurring supplements and eating more whole foods, but how do we actually make that happen in our everyday lives?
It can feel overwhelming to change everything all at once.
It definitely can, but it really starts with being aware. Now that we know this information, we can start reading labels more carefully and really thinking about those marketing claims.
And being more mindful about the foods and supplements we're choosing.
Right. It's about taking charge of our own health and not just blindly following the latest trends or what the experts tell us to do.
We need to be our own health advocates.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a huge overhaul. You can start small by adding more fruits and vegetables to your meals or swapping out white bread for whole grain.
And when you're looking at supplements, choose the ones that have the naturally occurring standard or a NOS label. That way you'll know they're coming from real food sources.
And maybe even more importantly, pay attention to how you feel when you eat certain foods or take certain supplements.
Like tune into our bodies.
Exactly. Our bodies are always sending us signals. We just have to learn to listen.
You know, at the end of his book, Dr. Clement asks a really powerful question. He says, now that you know the truth about supplements, what steps will you take to reclaim your health and nutritional freedom?
That's a great question. It's a challenge to all of us to be more conscious and make choices that truly support our well-being.
It's about taking back control and not letting ourselves be controlled by the food industry or anyone else.
Exactly. Knowledge is power. The more we understand about how our bodies work and what they need to thrive, the better decisions we can make.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about. And if you're feeling inspired to learn more about naturally occurring supplements and all the things we've talked about, you can find a PDF copy of Dr. Clement's book, Supplements Exposed, on the facilitator's Linktree. Just go to linktree/autochtons.
It's full of amazing information that could really change the way you think about vitamins and supplements.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of supplements. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep making the choices that feel right for you.